What if I told you that right now, in this very moment, there are massive stone monuments hidden across the world that governments and historians refuse to acknowledge? Structures so enormous, so impossible to explain with conventional tools and knowledge, that revealing their existence would fundamentally reshape everything we believe about human civilization. Before you even think about clicking away, you need to hear this. If you value truth over comfort, if you want to know what academia actively hides, then like this video immediately, subscribe to Hidden Reality, and hit that notification bell because what you're about to discover will change how you see history forever. The familiar narrative. We've all heard the stories our entire lives. Ancient humans built impossible structures that somehow still stand today. The Great Pyramid rising from the Egyptian desert. Machu Picchu perched impossibly high in the Andes Mountains. Stonehenge standing mysteriously on the English plains. These monuments are held up as proof, definitive proof, of how incredibly capable early civilizations actually were. But here's what they don't want you to know. What if I told you that compared to what was actually attempted in ancient China, those so-called impossible monuments are the easy version? What if, instead of simply stacking stones or shaping blocks where they stood, ancient builders attempted something far more ambitious? What if they carved entire monument pieces, massive, complete sections, directly out of a living mountain itself? Each one so gigantically large that moving even a single piece would push the absolute limits of what modern engineers think is physically possible. And here's the terrifying part. What happened next is exactly why this monument never entered the history books at all. SHAN, the Chinese monument, on a low mountain east of the modern city of Nanjing, hidden beneath ancient trees and quiet walking paths, there exists a place where ambition did not fail gradually, stopped all at once. And what remains are stones so monumentally enormous that even today, standing before them, it feels less like an abandoned quarry and more like a project frozen in the exact middle of a critical decision. At first glance, SHAN looks like any other old quarry. Its surface is cut and heavily scarred by centuries of stone extraction. Stone workers have clearly labored here for countless generations. But the moment you move deeper into the site, everything transforms. The scale begins to shift in ways that are genuinely difficult for the human mind to process. Because the stone here is not broken into manageable blocks or reduced to rubble. What you find instead are three colossal forms carved directly from the mountain itself. Three massive components that were never meant to remain where they are. They were meant to move. They were meant to travel across the land. Cut directly from the bedrock are three enormous pieces of what was intended to be the largest stone monument ever attempted in all of Imperial China. A ceremonial structure designed specifically to honor the founding emperor of the Ming dynasty. This monument was so immense that even before construction was finished, it surpassed the scale of nearly every stone structure built before it or since. One piece was meant to serve as the enormous base, a vast rectangular pedestal that weighed more than 16,000 tons. Another was the body of the monument itself, nearly 50 meters tall in its intended final orientation. This piece was carved with clean, mathematically precise planes and edges that feel almost machine-made. The third component was the crown, a massive stone head adorned with intricate dragon motifs, meant to rest on top and complete the entire structure. Together, these three pieces would have formed a stone structure towering more than 70 meters high. The combined weight would exceed 30,000 tons. The completed monument would have been visible from miles away in every direction. But they never left the mountain. What makes SHAN truly unsettling is not that the project failed. It's that the project progressed so far, so advanced in completion, without anyone apparently stopping to ask whether the final step was even physically possible. Look at the evidence. The cuts are perfectly precise. The surfaces are completely flat. The stone was carefully isolated from the surrounding bedrock with deep trenches carved around each massive piece. Channels were cut specifically for wedges. Edges were shaped exactly as they would need to be once the stones were erected at their final destination. This tells us something crucial. The builders were not improvising. They were not experimenting through trial and error. They were following a comprehensive plan they fully expected to complete. They believed this project was absolutely achievable. And yet, at some critical point during construction, the inescapable realization must have arrived. These stones could not be moved. Not across the uneven terrain surrounding the mountain. Not down from the elevated slopes. Not across 15 kilometers of land to reach the imperial mausoleum where this structure was meant to stand. There was no system of rollers available. No sledges could support this weight. No ramps could be constructed. The manpower of the entire nation could not move a single block of this size, let alone 3. The animals of the era possessed nowhere near the strength required. The project was not paused. It was not suspended temporarily. It was completely abandoned. The tools were put down and never retrieved. The workers simply walked away. The stone remained partially attached to the mountain, as if the landscape itself refused to release what human ambition had attempted to claim. This is where SHAN becomes more than just overconfidence. The decision to begin cutting stone at this scale was not made lightly or impulsively. This was the early 1500s during one of the most powerful periods in all of Chinese history. The Ming state was absolutely capable of organizing vast labor forces. They had recently constructed the Forbidden City with all its intricate details and precision. They had restored the Great Wall to magnificent standards. They had launched massive maritime expeditions across the Indian Ocean. This was not a society unfamiliar with logistics. This was not a civilization lacking organizational capability or engineering knowledge. So how did a project of this magnitude reach such an advanced construction stage without anyone calculating the consequences? Some historians suggest ambition itself was the point. Perhaps the Yongle emperor sought to surpass all previous monuments, even at the cost of pushing beyond practical limits. Others believe the scale grew gradually, expanding beyond feasibility only after work had already begun. Maybe initial plans were modest, but ambition increased with each phase. But standing at the quarry looking at stone carved with such precision yet never moved, neither explanation feels completely adequate. MASUDA OKURA, the Japanese monolith. In the hills of southern Japan, hidden beneath ancient bamboo groves and quiet forest paths, in a region once central to the birth of Japanese civilization, there rests a single block of stone so large, so deliberately shaped, and so completely out of archaeological context that even after centuries of careful study, no scholar can say with true confidence why it exists at all. MASUDA OKURA does not rise like a traditional monument. It does not resemble a ruin in the way ancient structures usually appear because it was never reduced to fragments. It was never reclaimed by the natural landscape. Instead, it remains completely whole and entirely intact. It is precisely carved as if its builders simply walked away once they reached a point where continuation no longer made sense. Carved directly from solid granite, this monolith measures more than 11 meters in length. It stretches 8 meters in width. It rises nearly 5 meters in height. The total weight approaches 800 tons, making it one of the largest single megaliths in all of Japan. Yet unlike tombs, unlike temples, unlike fortifications, it does not clearly belong to any recognized architectural category. From a distance, its silhouette feels unnatural. The stone does not follow the irregular contours of a natural outcrop. Instead, it presents long straight edges. It displays a flattened upper surface. The angles suggest deliberate planning rather than natural erosion or mere chance. And when you reach the top and examine it closely, the strangeness becomes absolutely impossible to ignore. Cut into the upper surface are 2 large square holes. Each one is carved straight down into the granite with sharp corners and uniform depth throughout. These features immediately stand out because such precise square cavities are genuinely rare in early stonework. This level of precision requires sustained effort, careful measurement, and absolute confidence in execution. Between these openings runs a shallow ridge or channel that divides the stone in a way that feels entirely intentional. It's as if the surface was meant to accommodate something that never arrived, or perhaps to serve a function that was never completed. At the base of the monolith, faint lattice-like markings remain visible. These are traces of systematic cutting that suggest the stone was being shaped methodically and deliberately, not roughly extracted in haste. This reinforces the sense that this was part of a larger plan rather than an isolated experiment. What makes MASUDA OKURA deeply unsettling is not simply that its purpose remains unknown. It's that this monolith sits among other ancient stoneworks in the region that do have clear context and meaning. Burial mounds exist nearby. Carved tombstones line the areas around it. Early religious structures stand in the same region. Yet this monolith refuses to align neatly with any of them. At what point did the original builders realize that whatever they were creating no longer justified the enormous effort? BARABAR caves, the Indian chambers, in the hills of eastern India, carved into solid granite that should resist shaping at every single stage, there exists a series of chambers that quietly challenge everything we assume about early human architecture. Not because they are large, not because they are decorative, but because they are unervingly controlled. From the outside, these caves look completely ordinary. They appear even modest in scope. Simple entrances are cut into rough stone hills that give absolutely no indication of what awaits beyond. But the moment you step inside, the entire material reality of the space transforms in ways that are genuinely difficult to ignore. The walls do not absorb light. They reflect it. The granite surfaces are polished to such an extraordinary degree that they function like mirrors. They return reflections cleanly and evenly across flat walls and curved ceilings. There is no distortion. There is no interruption. What makes it deeply disturbing is how sound actually behaves once you speak inside these chambers. Every single word reverberates through the space with unusual clarity. Sound expands and lingers, but not chaotically. It moves evenly, as if the cave itself was deliberately shaped to respond to vibration. Simple speech becomes something that fills the entire space and refuses to dissipate quickly. These chambers were carved more than 2,000 years ago during a period when most stone construction relied on visible tool marks, rough finishing, and gradual refinement. Yet here, in some of the hardest rock available anywhere on Earth, the interiors show no trace of hesitation. There is no evidence of experimentation. There is no sign that builders were learning as they worked. Everything appears deliberate from the very first cut. Why would a culture pour immense effort into shaping stone with this level of refinement for people who actually sought isolation rather than public display? Why achieve perfection where simple functionality alone would have been completely adequate? These monuments, these impossible achievements, remain buried across our world, hidden, protected, kept from public knowledge. If this investigation opened your mind to the truth, then like this video right now. Subscribe to Hidden Reality so you never miss the evidence they don't teach in schools. And share this with someone who still questions official history. The truth is out there, and we're revealing it.